Welcome to another episode of Fabitgarage. So in this episode, here's the man behind the camera. I figure I show myself and reintroduce myself as I did on my intro, but I never really showed my face because I figured showing my work to other people it's a little more important to me than showing my face and one day having people recognize me. Oh, he does YouTube. Like, I really don't care for stuff like that. But if I can share something that I'm capable of doing to help someone else, that actually does it for me more. So my name is Willie. I'm a repair technician. We specialize in European cars at the shop that I work at. We do 90% BMWs and Mercedes, and the other 10 we do Audis, Volvos. We do some Volkswagens, not a lot. It's mostly Audis, and that's pretty much about it. We have factory tools, factory computers, special tools, all bought from the dealer. We have dealer subscriptions, so we can use their factory scanners. We're not anywhere close to gas station repairs. We do everything. We put only OEM parts in, and we're constantly fixing these cars. I mean, in stock form, they break. So, but anyway, I love European cars, but they're a pain in the ass. They always break, and I don't know why I still love them. I hate BMWs. I just work on them because I have to. I have a love for Audis, and I've had Audis and Volkswagens in the past, and I don't know why I like them, but I keep coming back to the idea of buying another one, but I don't know. We'll see. But for now, we're going to stick to Japanese cars, which I also love. I love every car, honestly. Anything that's called a car, I'm behind the wheel. So anyway, this is me. I've been working on these cars, and I'm going to show you guys what I've done to the shop. I upgraded a lot since last episode. Then we're going to move on to what I'm going to do to the transmission. I have to drop the transmission again and show you guys what I'm going to do to upgrade and fix a couple little issues. After I show you guys that, we're going to go right into how much did I spend on this build. So let me show you the shop, and then we'll go and get the other things taken care of. All right, so as you guys can see, we have a full desktop. We have Wi-Fi in the shop. We have a flat screen hung. We have any kind of show that I can watch in here. We have some banners hung. We cleaned it up. That bench, this whole area here is nice and clean. It's really awesome to be able to come in here and order parts, look up torque specs, look up anything. It's just awesome having a computer here. If I need to look up a part, I can just go right here. Before, I used to be, write it down on a Post-it. At the end of the day, when I go in the house, I go on the computer and research all that. By that time, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. So being able to do it on the fly, it's going to be awesome. So decorated it a little bit. As you can see here, I have a router back there with 3 antennas. So I have my own Wi-Fi. When I go into the house, my phone connects to the house Wi-Fi. As soon as I come out here, which before I had no signal whatsoever, it automatically connects us to the Wi-Fi in the shop, which is, I'm gonna have you guys guess the name, Fabitgarage. So it's pretty cool having internet out here. It really is. So having heat would be a little nice too. I have one of those torpedo heaters. It works okay. I mean, right now it's, as you can see here, 50 degrees, a little chilly, not freezing. I can still put up with it and be out here doing things, but it's definitely nice having all this stuff here. Bench still a mess, but again, I have to go through it. So I figure I'd give you guys a little update on the shop. I have to clean up the tire machine, clean up that bench there, fix and sell generators, fix and sell quad, fix and sell Miata. And once I do all that, I can really make the shop look really nice, have a ton of room, and then buy more crap and fill it up again. So yeah, let's get going with the plans for the transmission. And then we'll go and step by step on how much I spent on the whole build. Okay, so now that you guys saw the shop, hopefully you guys liked it. There's a lot more to come. The shop, as weeks and weeks go by, it's gonna be nicer and nicer, and hopefully one day I'll have like a perfect shop. And I know a lot of you guys are gonna look at it right now and say, "Oh, that would be perfect for me," and it is. But you always want more and more, no matter what you have. So hopefully I'll make this even better and better and better. But as of now, the way it is, even with a mess, I am extremely happy that I was able to achieve the dream of having a shop like this at home. So extremely thankful for everything I have. Now we're going to move on to the transmission. So I have a very poorly drawing of a T5 transmission. Just so you guys have an idea, I have to fix a couple of issues. So I mentioned on a couple videos ago that the shifter has slop, and I already knew that. So my shifter ball is actually a little worn, and the cup that goes in where the ball sits is also worn. So I ordered a new cup. The only way to fix the worn part on the shifter is to get a new shifter. Not only that, but that shifter there, the throws are very long because it's a stock shifter. So I got myself a short shifter, and we'll talk about this in a couple of seconds. But here's a drawing of the T5 transmission. So where the tail housing of the transmission bolts up to the main body, I actually have a fluid leak right here. It's very small. You get 1 or 2 drops. It barely leaves a stain on the ground. Every time I put the car up on the lift, there's 1 or 2 drops here. And this piece here is siliconed on and then bolted. So someone definitely had this transmission apart before, because the gear inside of the transmission for the VSS sensor is missing. So someone did something. It could have upgraded internals. I have no idea. All I know is, according to my boss, bought it from a guy who rebuilt the whole thing. I have no idea. I have no shifting issues at all. If I shift very fast, I did it once. If I shift very fast at like 6,000 RPMs, I get a little bit of a grind, but I think that was kind of my screw up because I'm not used to the car and the RPMs going up that fast. And I think I just need to learn how to drive it a little better, and I'll admit it. So, but that shifter is also very, very long throw. So I feel like I maybe let off the clutch a little before I actually fully was in second gear. I don't know. It's such a thrill driving this car that you can't really pay attention and do everything perfect, because it's always like, oh shit, what the hell was that? So on this dot here represents the hole where the VSS speed sensor goes in and the gear is in there. So I have a little leak to take care of. To take the gear from the other transmission and put it into this one, I have to remove this tails housing anyway. So when I remove that, I'm going to install my plastic gear, and then I can actually reseal this, and I should take care of the speedometer, make that work, and I should take care of the leak. Now, the other things that I had was the slop. So in order to fix the slop and the short shifter, make it so I can, actually have a short shifter, I just ordered a new shifter. And so I have here to fix the slop, and we'll talk about this in a couple of seconds. So this shifter here, I bought it from Summit. Here's the part number. It's the T5 Mustang shifter. And if you notice the handle, it says Tri-X on it. So what Summit does, this is really a Steeda Tri-X. Steeda makes extremely good shifters. I really wanted to get the, I believe, MGW shifter, and everyone raves about it. And I was actually right there and I was going to buy one, but I realized that I need the shifter to have threads like this so that my other shifter will work, because I don't think I'll be able to use this here. I'm going to try it, but this might actually be too little of an angle. I have to actually come out and up. So, and this is aluminum, so I can't really cut and modify. If it was steel, then I can, cut it and extend it and do whatever like I did with the other one. But being aluminum, and I don't have my TIG welder yet, that's one of the reasons why we're cleaning the shop, because in the future, very soon, I'm making an area there in the bank so I can have a AC/DC TIG welder, so I can weld stainless steel and aluminum. So, but that's coming soon. So, Steeda makes these shifters. They don't engrave their name on it, and they sell it to Summit, so Summit can sell them a little cheaper, but you're really getting a Steeda shifter. So you cannot go wrong with this. Put this side to side with a Steeda, and they're identical. The only difference on the Steeda is the Steeda actually is a little taller and has a third hole. So they had to make it slightly different for the purpose of being able to sell it as another brand. But this is like top of the line shifter still, and the price is not bad. It was like $140. Now this I'm not including on the total build, because this is not something you need. If you find yourself a T5 with a stock shifter has no slop, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no need to upgrade to build a car like this. It's optional. So optional items I am not going to include. like the wheels. You don't need the wheels. You need the 2 tires, which I did include. So assuming you had decent tires up front, you don't really need to buy, racing tires for the front. As long as you have 2 really good tires in the back, it's pretty much okay for you to finish the build that way and then add it onto it later. So I got myself a shifter, got all the hardware here. I ordered a new first and second shift fork. And this is supposedly an upgraded shift fork. This one is made by Tremec. So Tremec, you can buy a Ford T5 or you can buy a Tremec T5. A Tremec T5 is a little more beefier. So this one here is a Tremec made shift fork. So the reason why this shifter has stops, see how it has a bolt, and when you shift it, the head of the bolt stops the shifter. So every time you shift, this fork here slides in the transmission and pushes the gear in. And what happens is a lot of people will bang second gear, and the stock shifter does not have the stopper here. So what happens is you end up over pulling, which means you over pushing this and you're putting a lot of stress over here. And a lot of times these plastic little clips can break. A lot of times you hear about bent forks. And I've actually seen a couple of them actually break the whole piece. The whole piece just falls in the bottom of the transmission. So this one I have no issue shifting, but I figured if I'm going to be in there, this upgraded shift fork was only like $30. If I'm already going to be inside of the transmission, why not just upgrade at least the first and second, which is the one that fails the most. The third and fourth gear shift fork does not seem to get damaged or fail very often. And the 5th gear one is completely, I've never really heard it fail. So this is the one that always fails. So it's a good idea to, since I'm refreshing the trans, to replace it. And I got all new little bushings for all the shift forks. So you see here, I have enough. So I already put 2 here for the ones I need. And when I get it apart, I'll replace all the plastic little shift fork bushings with new ones. Some people like the brass upgrade. I don't really consider it an upgrade. The plastic one lasts so much, it lasts such a long time, and many people don't have any issues with plastic ones. So the problem with the brass ones is they just transfer over a lot of vibration and noise. This one kind of like the plastic one kind of isolates that a little bit, and these don't fail very often, to be honest. So I just went with the factory replacement plastic ones. So got my new shifter. I got a new shift knob that I'll be installing, but I have to modify that shifter again, just this part here. So I'll get to that when I get to that. But this right here is the transmission upgrade. So next week when I take the transmission down, I'll go through everything that I did and show you guys how I did it and stuff. So now we're gonna move on to the build price. So we'll see how we did there. I'd say we did extremely well with the budget build, but I guess I'll let you guys decide. Okay, so we're gonna go through this. Don't be mad at me about how much I paid for this car, because this was basically a steal. It was and it wasn't, and I'll explain. So I'm gonna sit down for this one. So first thing I did was vehicle. 2004 Miata LS, leather package, limited slip, all those goodies. I paid $900 for this car. Very quick. I used to drive an hour away to see my girlfriend at the time, which now is my wife. And I used to drive by this house, and there was a white Miata just sitting there, this car here, under a tarp. And for months and months and months, I drove by this car, and I was like, and I've always loved the NB Miata. So I decided, you know what the hell? I'm gonna stop, knock on the door, and just, it won't hurt to ask if this person might want to sell the car. So I stopped, and this elderly couple opened the door, and they're like, oh, this car belongs to my daughter. She's dealing with cancer. The car's been parked for months. I don't know. It failed inspection at some point, and she didn't have the money to fix it. There was some rust issues, which is like the front frame rails and stuff that, actually, let me turn the camera here so you guys can see me. So she's like, well, there was issues with the car and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, if you can do me a favor and write down my name and number, and one day you decide to sell, I'm very interested. I drive by here all the time. And she's like, okay. So 6 months go by. 7 months go by, 8 months, almost a year goes by, and then I get a phone call from a random number, and I was like, who's that? I get a voicemail and say, hey, this is, I believe her name was Lucy or something like that. And she's like, oh, you left your name and number months ago here, and we're ready to get rid of the car if you're interested, the white car. And I was like, the white car? And I was like, oh no, the Miata. So I called back, and she was like, yeah, come down and we'll talk. So I went down there anyway, after a little bit of back and forth and looking at the car, $900. She said $900 takes it. And I was like, sold. I lived about, at that point, I was already living here where I used to come to see the girlfriend, or the wife now. And I pretty much said sold. So I brought it home and I fixed it all up. It started right up and drove up on the trailer. It's been sitting for all that time. So I was like, wow, that's good. Runs and drives, I'm okay with it. So anyway, paid $900 for the car. Now, we're gonna move on here to the list. Now, this first section here is gonna be all necessary parts. This is things you have to buy in order to build this. This is nothing extra. So you're gonna need a 5-liter motor, whatever option you wanna get, whatever year. You're gonna need a T5 transmission or an automatic transmission, whatever you wanna get. You're gonna get a Monster Miata axles. You're gonna need an 8.8 diff, whatever gear you want. I recommend 327 with Trek Lock, which is limited slip. Then you gotta get the diff mounts, Thunderbird, CV shafts, the custom broach hubs. And then for my motor, I replaced the pilot bearing, the clutch pivot, the slave cylinder. We bought the new one, fuel pressure regulator, fuel lines, exhaust kit, goes on. Starter, if you don't have a starter, if the motor came in one, you save some money. The hood cowl, I added on because I cut the hole in the hood, so I kind of needed it. A radiator, I put 0 because I already had the radiator already upgraded when I had the car running and driving with the 4-cylinder, so I put 0. The clutch kit, I also put 0 because when I bought my motor for $300, I paid $300 for my 302, and it came with a brand new clutch kit, pressure plate, everything in a box, brand new. So I already had that on the shelf, so I just used it. It's just a stock replacement clutch, nothing fancy. So those are the only two things that I added 0, was the clutch and the radiator, because I already had them. But if you don't have it, add couple $100, or probably $300-400 for the clutch and a good aluminum radiator. So, you get the coolant hoses, coolant temp sensor, throttle cable, little fuse box for you to do your circuit separate. And this is going to depend on if you're doing carbureted or EFI. If you're doing EFI, you might pay a couple $100 more for the motor, and it'll come with all the wiring, the ECU, everything. It all depends what you want to do and what you can find where you live. Going carbureted, you can make just as much power as EFI, hands down, no questions asked, and it'll be a hell of a lot cheaper. Now, if you're going to drive it daily, then EFI might be a best option for you because it'll start up easier and it'll drive easier. But if you're just going to be like a weekend fun car, take it to work a couple of days, carburetor, and you don't have a lot of like winter where you live, carburetor is the way to go because it's cheap. You get it running, you get rolling. There's no... So, again, this is a continuation of it. Alternator bracket, alternator drive belt. I added $100 for fluids, for coolant, oil, and all that. The speed sensor for the transmission was $15 just to make the speedo work. Motor mounts, and then 2 rear tires. I added $300 because that's around how much I paid for 2 tires, 2 15-inch tires. Those RS4s. So total spent all the parts I need to do this, $4,357. So now wait. Now this is optional. This is what I've done that you don't need to do. So I spent about $1,400 on the motor alone. I did heads, cam, ported intake, and I did, the heads were completely gone through, spring upgrades, valve job, all new gaskets, new valve covers, new carburetor. So that was just my choice. You can choose to put a bone stock 5-liter in. That is your choice. But I decided, if I'm going to go to the trouble, I'm just going to make this little thing a little more choppy, a little peppier, because that's what I want to do. I had to put calipers in the car. That's, that's something I had to do. It's not something you probably won't have to do if you buy a car that has good calipers. Mine just didn't. The radio, again, you can keep the Miata stock radio. You don't need a fancy radio. Shift light, you don't need. The wheels, you don't need. Lug nuts, you probably already have lug nuts in your car. You don't need the aftermarket ones like I did for my wheels. AFR gauge and coolant temp, you don't really need it. I advise you get it, at least the AFR, but you don't really need it, honestly. Coilovers, you don't need. You can keep the stock Miata suspension, do the springs just like Monster Miata does. The switch panel, you don't really need. The hood shocks is just to make it look cool. You don't really need that either. And then the air cleaner for my carburetor, that was $100. And again, if you're doing carburetor, you can just use a cheaper filter. And if you're doing EFI, you don't even need it. And then the little 5.0 badge in the back, it's optional. So it's all little things. So my optional parts came out to $31.95. So I spent $3,000 extra just on things that I wanted. So before I get to the total, now I put a section here for deductions. What does that mean, deductions? So when you buy a Miata, the cool thing about it is if you buy a Miata that runs and drives, you can take the motor, I'll sell the motor. You can take the transmission, I'll sell the transmission. You can sell it's most likely going to be a manual because most of them are manual. You can sell the drive shaft and axles and the clutch pedal as a conversion with the transmission, or you can sell them separate. You can sell your whole drivetrain in Miata and you can make money back. So I'm going to show you guys what I got for my drivetrain because mine is an 04 NB and it has a VVT motor. It's an NB2, they call it. I was able to get a lot more money. So if you buy an NA, you're most likely not going to get as much money back because many people take NB parts to upgrade their NA. So NB parts are worth more and they're better parts. They just are. So I sold my stock 1.8 liter motor with 160,000 miles on it for $700. So I sold my transmission. Which was a 6-speed, which was an option because most Miatas were 5-speed. I sold that for $350. My limited slip rear end, which was a 390 to Fuji, I think it was like a special. It's called a Super LSD, which only came in the 04 and 05s. That was like a special, supposedly heavier duty limited slip. I sold that for $600. And then I sold the drive shaft and the axles for people that have a 1.6 and they want to go to a 1.8. You need to upgrade your drive shaft and your axles along with the rear diff. I sold that for $250. So I made $1,900 selling the stock Miata parts. So I bought the car for $900, and then I made $1,900 in parts, and then I was left with a car that I can start to build. So if you add how much I spent for necessary parts, plus how much I spent on extras, it comes up to $75.52. Minus the just the parts. So $75.52 plus $900 for the car, which I had it on a separate thing, minus the $1,900 in parts that I sold. My grand total, buying the car, building it, selling stock parts, was $65.52 total build. That is, again, I looked out on the price of the car. You're most likely not going to find one, especially nowadays. They start at like $4,000 in my area, and they go all the way up to $9,000. So you're most likely not going to luck out as much, but you might find one for $1,000 that, doesn't start, and you probably won't be able to get much for the motor, but you can still, if it has a good package on it, you can still sell the transmission, the rear end, some interior parts you don't want. You can still make some money. No matter what Miata you buy, you can still make some money. So this is how much I spent buying a car and building it, $65.52. So $6,500 I built myself a V8 Miata. Now, I'm going to focus on this here, and I'm going to give you guys some scenarios real quick. I don't want to make this video too long, but this is pretty much one of the most important videos. So let me put this camera here. All right. So let's say you're trying to do an estimate on how much. Oh, you like my mouse pad, by the way? Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I had it made just to make the shop look a little nicer. Let's say you want to estimate, how much would it actually cost for me to build one? So in 2022, the market Miatas are going between 3 and 9. It depends on condition, miles, So let's say you find one that needs a little bit of work for around $3,000. The minimum you're going to spend for all the necessary parts, this is to do a carbureted like I did. It's going to be $5,100. Now, $5,100 is up in the amount that I paid for mine. So I got my motor for $300. So in this $5,100 here, I put $600 for the motor because in most areas, this is what you're probably going to pay for. I just lucked out. So the thing is, I have a thing where I can find good deals for some reason. I always come across things that are cheap, and I always find cheap deals, and I don't know why, but I love it. So I'm putting in $600 for a used engine. I'm putting in $400 for a used T5 or an automatic, which mine I paid $250. And then for a differential, I'm putting around $400, and I only paid $200 for mine. So again, I find good deals, but this is the more realistic numbers you're gonna have to pay, and this is all included in this price. That's why my total parts was $43.57, and this one here I did $51. So I added I added some things that I got for really cheap that wasn't really realistic. So that way you guys. So let's say you get a Miata for $3,000. You get necessary parts, bare minimum, $5,100. You're gonna be spending $8,107. This would be to build a V8 Miata, and then you can still sell all your Miata stock parts, engine, transmission, rear end, whatever's good, and deduct it from there. So on an NB, you're most likely gonna make between $1,300 and $2,000. Depends if it's an NB2, depending on the drivetrain. If it has limited slip, if it's an open diff, you're not gonna get as much. NA, again, their differentials are pretty much all garbage. Most people upgrade to the NB, so you're not gonna get as much. I'd say you can comfortably get $1,300 for an NB, partying it out before you actually start the build, and around $900 for an NA. You should be able to get $900 selling an NA motor, transmission, and all that. So keep in mind, you'll be able to subtract from the total of your build. You'll be able to subtract some money for selling stock parts. So doing it the way I did it, again, it's carbureted, but let me take this phone out here. One sec. And flip the camera. So doing it the way I did it, again, carbureted, I don't mind it. I'm okay with it. Later on, the thing is, you do a carbureted, you get it running and driving, and later on you can just drop an EFI kit on it, Holly Sniper or something like that. So to get it moving and get it driving, and there's nothing wrong with going carbureted. So it's really up to you what you decide to build, but it can be done for less than $7,000 if you find a good deal on a Miata. It can definitely be done for less than 10. That's paying, $3,000, $4,000 for a Miata. So it all depends on how clean of a Miata you start with. But a lot of people say, V8 Miatas start at 10, 12,000, 14,000. No, it does not. If you can learn some fabrication skills and you can do some of your own work, you do not need to pay that much for a build. You can save a lot of money by using, like I did, scrap metal, cleaning it up, putting some work into it. If you don't know how to weld, learn how to weld. I never knew how to weld, and I bought a welder. My first welder was Harbor Freight, and I pretty much taught myself how to weld. So if you don't know something, try and learn it. Don't just automatically say, I can't do it. You can do it if you try. Nobody was born knowing anything. Everybody had to learn something. Actually, everybody had to learn everything from scratch. So don't just give up on your dream just because you don't think you can do it. You can. I never thought I'd be able to finish this, and I'm a technician for a living. Like, I thought this was going to be like a project that I would just never finish. And guess what? I'm driving this on the weekend. So I apologize for this episode being so long, but I want to give you guys a good breakdown of everything. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to get back in the house. It's getting a little chilly out here, but I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys next week. So we can drop the transmission, do a couple upgrades, and then we'll make some videos of drivability and stuff, how the suspension is working out, how the shifting is working out, and before winter hits. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.